What are you doing?
We have our, folks from Little League here. Jessica will give a little bit of summary, but this is with respect to scoreboard that we're going to put out there that they're going to actually install. I've had some very good discussions with them. This will basically be, without cost to the town, but I strongly support, what is going to be discussed. And Jessica, is just going to briefly review some of the key points that I had discussed with them during our meeting as kind of my due diligence of what this will be involved. We do have, a document that's that they had provided with respect to the scoreboard and so forth. So I'll just turn it over to Jessica, but briefly just summarize it.
The major points of this project are that Little League will be funding the signs and the installation. They have a qualified electrician who's going to assist, and since it's being done purely by Little League volunteers, it's covered under Little League's volunteer insurance. So that's a plus for us. It will be done and it will be checked in with our buildings and grounds supervisor. I attached the warranty information. Obviously, we don't need to go over that part now. The plans have already been submitted to the building department because they're going to have to look at certain code aspects. And then the maintenance plan for the foreseeable future would be that Little League will follow up on any issues and malfunctions through the warranty period. Little League will provide the maintenance for the boards, items like burnt out bulbs, and any damage caused during the course of Little League play will be fixed by Little League.
The other item is I've asked, do they have the appropriate liability insurance coverage?
Yes.
And the answer is yes, right, gentlemen?
Yes. So outside of that, you have in your packet a copy of the mock-up of it, the warranty, and the installation information that was submitted to the building department.
Okay, so where do we go next?
Where do we go next?
I think
We authorize us to begin moving.
Installation on our fields, and we'll be eventually taking, will be taking title to it. I think probably some board just approval, or allowing them to do this.
Yeah, I would
see no
certainly,
reason.
I would certainly make that motion. I mean, I'd just like to say, I do appreciate all you do for this town. I do know, as somebody who used to be involved in volunteer activities, that, volunteer service is one of those unsung things that make this town work. Without you and the job that you do, we wouldn't have the program that we'd have. We wouldn't have children having the opportunity to play baseball and learn valuable lessons that will carry them through the rest of their lives. So I really do thank you and appreciate for all you do. So I know you waited here a while to hear this and to get this moving, but the fact that you took the initiative and stuck with it and got us to the point where we can do this, that says a lot about you and your organization, so thank you.
And I second that because they have been very responsive, on this issue and, considering our, concerns, that we have. And I think it's really been a good partnership and working, together with them. And also, I'd like to say April 6th is opening day, but please make some comments.
Just one thing that we had talked about that wasn't mentioned. It was one of the things that you wanted to put an addendum onto the contract. Right. I did say that there is something in the contract that addresses this, but I don't have a problem if you wanted to add another thing to it, which is that should the town of Wabash Little League cease operations at Robinson Lane, the scoreboard, we're not going to dig them up and take them. They're yours. Okay.
I'm not going to worry about it. It's addendum to the contract. I think we don't need to worry about that.
Well, I made that motion, so I mean.
I'll make a second, but on the question, which field is this going on, or how many of these are we?
I have it in the proposal that was submitted. There would be one on R3.
Okay.
I'm sorry, F3.
F3.
F3,
Thank you. SL1 and R2. So we would have three of them.
Oh, okay.
We would have a girls' field, the younger boys, and the older boys.
Okay.
You guys make memories for everybody. You really, really do. This stuff stays with them.
Two of the fields that we're looking to put them on are two of the lighted fields, so this way it could be
Right.
you know, we get a lot of community activity
yeah.
on a Friday or a Saturday evening. You get a lot of people come out to enjoy the games because it's something to do.
course, yeah.
So that's why a big choice of ours to put them on those fields is to be able to have a Friday night game or something like
Means a
that,
lot.
and it gets a lot of
Right.
people out.
It does.
Now, this is what they look like, or are they gonna look different than that?
There's a color mock-up in there.
Yeah, there's a blue.
Yes, that's,
I don't get a call.
the company had emailed me,
I have another one.
because I had
Here.
talked about
There's
the
a
thing,
blue,
this town of Wappinger Little
like
League
this.
at the
Okay.
top.
Like
Oh,
this,
great.
it's in there, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, wow, that looks great.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does. I mean,
It's
it's
a-
good quality and
It really
from what we're
is.
looking at.
Yeah. All right, great.
Yeah.
Motion and second?
Which is,
I think that's
Yeah.
great. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sure.
So there's a motion, and they are LED lights, so not likely bulbs will need to be replaced, but anyway, they'll be responsible.
Very nice.
So there's a motion second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays or abstentions? The motion passed. Thank you, gentlemen, again,
Thank
April
you.
6th, all right?
Yes, we did. Did you send that?
I didn't send it out yet.
The-
Moving out.
We moved the time, instead of 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. It's probably gonna be cold, so we figured an hour later might be a little bit warmer.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
That's
I
fun.
had, made one oversight as well, you guys are free to go or stay, but I had forgotten to also mention our soccer club is here. Why don't you come on up, and, because we have some issues with respect to getting the soccer up and ready with respect to their season.
Brian?
Brian's is.
Hi, Brian.
Yeah.
How are you?
And Brian, you heard the discussion with respect to Castle Point as well, so anything that would need to be done on that, then Mr. Frazier, we believe, is able to take care of
Excellent.
that one.
Yeah,
So go
Brian
ahead.
Lors, I've been in Wappinger soccer for, I guess, about 7 years now. Volunteer coach. I am an assistant coach for U12 travel, head coach for U10 travel, and a head coach for U10 rec. I also I'm the field director for Wappinger soccer. Last fall, we lost out about 20 games due to weather and conditions between Airport and Rockingham. The season ended about 3 weeks early because of the 2 feet of water that we had at Rockingham. So, just trying to work with the board, get these kids a place to play. And I understand that we had an exorbitant amount of rain last year, but just everything whatever we could do to get these kids out and playing and, off the games and in the house.
And you've been down to Castle Point, right? You've seen
Yeah,
the
so I
fields
stopped,
and-
I guess, late January, I stopped down there. We can get, like the graph showed, the U4 to U8, our development youth academy. We can get that on the upper field. U10 and U12 fields, we can get on that bottom section. Still don't have anything, though, for a full field, which minimum requirements are 50 by 100 yards. Usually we're looking at about 70 to 110, 115, something like that. Good news is Rockingham, I was able to get out last week in line. I am planning on opening those fields on Wednesday for practice, and our first games are Sunday. We were planning on lining Airport Sunday, but the rain Thursday and Friday destroyed that. So drainage would be great. Any kind of help would be great. We also brought up a couple things with the turn at Rockingham. It's dangerous. There's a lot of traffic on a weekday. Every day. I know I'm there 6 out of 7 days a week. And especially game days, it's high traffic. If we could do something with the millings that are in the parking lot right now, just to level it off and make it a little wider, safer for the cars, and obviously if the cars are safe, the kids are safe. And the same goes for the parking lot at airport as well. It's, I have a pickup, but it's off-roading going through the parking lot over there.
It is, I agree with you.
That field, I have 2 more weeks, so that, the rec group starts, April 6th. So, but we're just trying to get everything together. We just need some more sun.
Yeah, we just
A
need
lot
Mother
less rain.
Nature to help us.
But any help would be greatly appreciated.
No, we thank you, and I would be remiss if I didn't also thank you for all you do for the children of our community. Anything we can do to help, let us know. I know we have been working with you to try to get some of these things straightened out. I know Mr. Frazier has been looking into some of these things as well, so hopefully we can get this straightened out as soon as possible.
Awesome. Thank you.
I guess, Steve, maybe you can coordinate with the highway superintendent. He wasn't able to be here tonight because of, injury to his fiancee, so, but maybe you can look at that as to the millings or some other way to help the situation that Brian
Yeah,
discussed.
over at the airport, I could use his help, and
Okay.
we can work together on that.
Okay, so if you would talk with him, and the board will support whatever is needed on that. Okay,
Thank all of you.
Thank
Really,
you.
you guys are
Yeah.
so important.
thank you. Okay, then the next item will be Jessica here to talk about summer camp fees, revisiting that issue. But why don't you tell the board your really good news?
The Community Day news?
Yes.
We have finally in our hands the signed and executed contract with the rides provider for Community Day, which is just a relief to everyone. It means that the largest portion of this event is absolutely locked in. Working with carnival companies is always fun and a long process, but that long process is at an end and we're ready to go.
They weren't getting back, or people were injured, so Jessica's been
Yes.
very much persevering on that to get that done.
Yes, so that is important. All right, so the 2019 camp rate revised proposal, which is actually a revised proposal, not much has changed in terms of the layout of price increase. That really wasn't the request for change that I had from the last board meeting. It was to reevaluate and reduce some of the professional development hours and wish list kind of training for the camp staff. So we were able to reduce the staffing costs a couple of different ways. One, this year we are only going to have returning staff be CPR and first aid certified, which we are always far above and beyond any Board of Health requirement for safety training, and we will remain so even if we have these new staff members that do not go through that training. We reduced some of the professional development hours to what we felt like were the absolute core of what we're trying to accomplish with this staff. And so we actually reduced the staffing cost by $6,000 from the last estimate that we gave you all. And what that did was, now we are at the average revenue per camper being $430 and the average cost per camper being $450, which is $30 down from the last estimate. What questions do we?
So what's the difference between the cost of last year versus this year? Do you have the two numbers?
For the residents or for
For the cost of the town?
the cost to the town?
Yeah.
It is an increase, again, it seems like the number 6 keeps coming up in here, but it is an increase of about $6,000.
So last year was how much, and this year is going to be how much in terms of the town contribution?
So, you mean the subsidy contribution?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so right now, we are at, if all goes according to what's on this sheet, we are looking at a $3,554 subsidy, which is near equal to what it was last year. We had some things that were included in one of the camp totals that I had for last year that were recalling camp staff for working Community Day.
So how much did you reduce it from the last year? Because I thought we were somewhere in the $70,000 range versus the $50,000 range when we looked at the numbers last time. Where are we now with that?
So the last staffing cost that I gave you guys was, again, roughly $72,000. Nothing about the supply cost changed. That wasn't really even something we were examining as part of this reduction. So the previous staffing estimate that I had was $72,000.
Okay, and where are we now?
We're at 66.
66, okay.
Okay.
Okay, so you've reduced it by another $6,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do we feel?
Wait a second. Councilman Beal looks at these numbers.
Exactly.
There was a decrease in supply cost over last proposal, was 7,000 to 6,000 now.
And the last one it had. Do
The
you have
last
it?
proposal had 16 counselors, this one has 17.
Correct. So when we were discussing putting a cap on the number of children, I had a proposal that showed if we went up to 175 kids down towards the bottom of one of them, how many counselors we'd have to hire. Then up at the top, it was how many we would have to hire if there was no growth. So what we're looking at in front of us now is, it seemed like last time we agreed upon capping it at 160 children. So moving forward from that decision, I was able to run these numbers based off of that amount.
And what's the total revenue expected on this now?
68. So what we did is we added in the cap, and then we also looked at the trends, the fact that more extended hours campers are joining us every year, whereas before, primarily it was 75% regular hours and 25% extended. That gap is closing a little more each year. So if you base it off of the difference last year, which was we had 64 children who were there regular hours and 44 who were there extended, that's what's reflected on this revenue, but it probably will go in favor of there being more extended hours campers who will be paying a higher rate, which will benefit closing the gap even further.
What's the hours for the extended hours?
8 to 4,
And what's the normal hours?
9 to 3.
Are all the counselors there from 8 to 4?
They stagger. So the first campers are getting there at around 8 o'clock. The counselors, because they do a lot of setup and cleanup at the end and beginning of each day, they get there about a half hour before the campers, and then they are there through the majority of the day. You have another group that comes in around 9:30. They do the close of the day. Because with the extended hours, even though it is increasing, it is less children than you're going to have there at noon. So for the lion's share of the day, you have the full camp staff there, okay? And for the two ends of it with the extended hours, you have fewer.
How many weeks is this?
7 weeks.
It's 5 days, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was the town contribution last year, do you know?
Town contribution, when you worked in the fact that we recalled some of the camp staff to work for Community Day, if you're looking directly at the lines, it was about $5,000. That's straight examining the budget. It's not really accounting for the fact that some of that staff expenditure was not camp-related.
How many were enrolled last year?
156.
And the $50 increase is based on, what's the methodology to increasing at $50?
The methodology to increasing at $50 is that to truly close our gap, we would actually have to increase it more than $50, but $50 is the absolute most I would consider raising the price of camp in a single year.
I mean, it's still a increase. And last year, it was $350 for the first child, is that correct?
Correct. The regular hours, any of the ones that you see third child plus as a reduction, that pricing structure didn't exist last year. That was a request of the board that I went
Right.
and added in there. So if you take regular hours first and second child, extended hours first and second child, slide it back $50, that's the cost of it last year.
And that's for the complete 7-week period.
Correct.
All right, I'm going to support it.
I'll move it then.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays or abstentions? The motion passed. Okay, thank you, Jessica.
Thanks for doing your homework, appreciate it.
Steve, you're up.
Steve, you're up.
Last summer, the highway superintendent had asked me to look into replacing the front main gate to the grounds at the highway department. Current gate is in disrepair. It can't be closed tight enough to prevent people from passing through. Vehicles can't, but pedestrians can pass through the current gate. I had gotten two quotes. One was $19,450. The other one was $22 and change. I had contacted a third vendor. In spite of several follow-up calls, they didn't submit a quote on it. The urgency here is that he's held that price. We didn't have funding for it last year. It was brought up in discussion somewhere towards the end of summer, early fall, quick discussion here at a board meeting. We have the funding in a building repair fund at the moment. The urgency is the materials on this are scheduled to be increased here at the end of the month. So what I would like is a permission to sign the contract and then put everything together for you in a resolution for the next meeting.
This is a gate for $20,000?
It's going to be one of those sliding motorized gates, and it will have a passcode or key fob type thing, which will have some accountability then for who's opening and closing the gates, I guess, which has become a matter of concern up there.
This is for the highway garage.
Correct.
So it's going to have like a keypad to get in, and then it's going to have
A sensor to get out,
contacts on the way out?
and during business hours, it could be left open if
Needed.
you know, is wanted to, yeah, if someone's still there on the thing. It would also include repairing a section of fence that is adjacent to the front gate that's been damaged,
And how long has this been damaged for?
quite a number of years.
Yeah. I need more information to vote on this for $20,000 fence.
Well, are we voting to purchase it or for you to look into the pricing?
No, the pricing is what it is.
Okay, so you already have a vendor,
Until the end of this
everything.
week, actually.
Oh, so-
And then it's
You
gonna
just
go
wanna
up,
vote on the
which is why I
contract.
brought it forward tonight.
Oh, so the price is going to go up if we don't approve it this week?
Correct.
Yeah, that's the
Right,
part.
but we can't authorize him to sign a contract, and then it comes back as a resolution. That doesn't make any sense. If he's signing the contract, he's
Right.
entering into the agreement to do
Right.
the work. So my position is that I need more information. I want to see what this is going to look like. I want to see what quality it's going to be. I want to see, I'm not going to spend $20,000 with zero preparation for a fence. I understand security is paramount, I get that, but this has probably been like this for longer than I've been on this board.
Steve, do you have any other information that might help assist Councilman Beal in making a decision tonight?
I don't know if you're familiar with most of the storage areas that you go into. Most of them have this same type of gate. It's motorized, it slides open, it's heavy gauge aluminum, and then it would have either a key fob or a digital PIN number that we would have to punch into it to open it. And as you mentioned, that it would be a magnetic detector on the inside. When you're driving towards it, would open automatically to exit.
And I go through one every day at work. I understand what it is.
Okay.
But, the one that we put up at work, we went through a number of reviews on what it's going to look like, the quality, the maintenance contract, because these things shift after time and have to be realigned. There's a whole bunch of unanswered questions I would have on something like this. And as far as the price ending by the end of the week, I'm sorry, that's not my problem. It's not fiduciarily responsible for us to sit here, in my opinion, and approve a $20,000 expense just because the price is going to change on Friday. That's not the right way to do things, in my opinion. I want to see what this looks like. I want to see some sort of, something like this that is going to show us what we're doing. That's my position.
Do you have any idea what the percentage increase is? Are we talking about a huge one, or is it just something that we can deal with?
I don't know a number. It just was my thought that we would move on it before that increase happened.
Well, let's come back to the next meeting, do some more homework, and then...
We should have 3 bids on this, too. I mean, it shouldn't be on the fly. I understand
This
that.
has been ongoing since,
he has the bid.
the trouble is with this fencing, I'm having problems getting people to work for the town because of the prevailing wage issue.
Fair point.
A lot of them just, once I tell them that it's a municipal thing, they just say, we don't do that type of work. I have several contractors that do. The one, the 2 of them gave me the quotes. The third one, I hounded them pretty good and never submitted a quote for me.
I just would expect to at least see a picture of what we're voting on and some specifications as far as what type of, warranty there's going to be and, who's going to stand behind it. I could tell you that at the county, when we did this installation, the contractor walked away after it was done, and it became a major problem when we had a fence that wouldn't open at an emergency building.
Well, the contractor here is Decar Fence, and they've been working with us since I started working here. They also have done a number of jobs for Little League out there at Robinson Lane.
I suggest we, table this at this point, come back at the next meeting, and then we'll look at it.
Is this considered a public works project, or is this
So it's a public works project, but the threshold is 35,000.
Right, so is it fair to have the vendor come into the next town board meeting, give us some information on it, and we can move on it after hearing from the vendor? Is that fair?
I can look into that.
Because I would feel more confident in voting on it then, if I can at least ask questions to the vendor and feel more comfortable with it. That's all.
Sure.
Thank you. And you know what? If I would also ask the vendor, we'll put you on the agenda for the next meeting, if they could extend the courtesy.
It's not him, it's his supplier.
Okay, if it's an option to extend the courtesy of pricing for the next meeting, that would be
No,
greatly
he's held that
appreciated.
price since summer, but he's up against a hard increase on his materials.
Well, this is the first that I've even had this discussion, though.
I thought it was raised at one of the meetings there in the summer.
Okay.
That's what's this has been ongoing for a while, hasn't it?
Correct, yeah.
Well, I'd like
This
to,
isn't anything new.
Well, no.
Okay. So it has to be fixed.
Yep. But I think...
I understand what you're
agree.
saying
Yeah.
also. It'd be interesting to know what other municipalities have installed also.
That I don't,
If you
I'm
could find
concerned
out.
about Wappingers.
No, I understand, but what works for them and what, maybe they have,
So some have more security, some have less. I'll tell
exactly.
you that.
So if
I
somebody
can-
has a fence, that would be good to know.
I could tell you that the county auto centers have a similar fence on the auto center entry and exit. I'd be curious to know, who does that work. I don't know offhand, but, I could tell you, though, that in the 5 years I've worked for the county, there have been many times where these things, for whatever reason, aren't the key fob doesn't work, or people get stuck in there and can't get out. So I want to be able to know.
No, we're having that problem next door with the garage doors.
I have gotten
It's
trapped.
electronics, they failed.
I've gotten trapped and couldn't get out. It can happen. So if they could come to the next meeting, I greatly would appreciate it, and then we can
All
move
right,
from
see
there.
what you can do, Mr. Frazier.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a concern, though, I have to bring up.
Go ahead.
On River Road in Chelsea, the speed limit where the city is doing their construction went from 40 miles an hour, and then it changes 30 miles an hour, which doesn't make too much sense or consistency. Ever since they started doing the construction for the water in Chelsea, that speed limit was supposed to be 30 miles an hour. Mr. Gray, we walked around, God bless you. We walked on Saturday doing something else, and it behooves me to understand why that stretch is 40 miles an hour, especially where the construction zone is. So I'd like to have that, do whatever we can do to change that to 30 miles an hour. Jim, what do I have to do? That's a town road, I believe.
Coming from Chelsea Road, Jim, if you will. Chelsea Road is 30, right?
Yes,
30, so coming down Chelsea Road to Broadway or
to
River Road, whatever
Broadway,
you
all the
wanna
way
call it.
to where the New York City,
Then it increases to
Waterworks.
40, and it's 40 all the way out.
it's
to-
40 from the lumber company, before the lumber company, south
To Old Post Road,
to
at least Old Post Road.
to the beginning of the hill where the waterworks is. And then it goes back to 30.
Oh, it's only in there, okay.
Yes,
It's-
that's
The Old Post
what-
Road is 30,
Yes.
okay. Well,
I don't understand the logic
I
in
don't
that,
either.
and I don't understand why that whole section, because if I remember right, it was supposed to be 30 miles an hour until the 10 years of when they finished this
the
construction.
city didn't change the speed limit.
I didn't say the city did. I'm just saying that exists and does not make sense to the residents that are there. They're not happy. I have large trucks. I have a lot of traffic going through there, going from 30 miles an hour to 40, back to 30.
Well, I mean, there was some discussion in the environmental impact statement review for the project, so I'll look at that.
Please.
As far, I mean,
From what I can remember from the planning board, from the time I was there, the speed limits were supposed to be 30 miles an hour, all the way through.
We discussed it at the town board level regarding a construction zone
Right.
that reduced it, but the question was how, we tried to make the construction zone as far out as possible. Remember, we wanted it to be the entire stretch, and there was some sort of a restriction on how far the construction zone speed limit could be from the actual work. That was,
But this isn't the construction
It's a
zone.
lot like
That's
three-
the whole thing that doesn't make any sense.
Oh,
It's
'cause it was-
there.
it
It's
was-
right in front of the water section.
yeah, it was where the trucks were going through the more densely populated
Yeah,
area or
no,
something
no, no,
like that.
that's
Well,
30.
It's a lot like, it's a lot like
It's 30.
376, which has multiple speed limits, or did.
Depending on which direction you're
Yeah, there's no reason in the world it shouldn't all
No
be 30.
sense at all, and I'd like to have that changed to 30, if we could, as
I
soon
mean,
as
the other thing
possible.
is 40 seems to be a very strange number, because
That's what's
usually
posted,
it's either 50.
right?
There's
That's
a
what we
sign
saw.
there.
I don't.
It's 40, and it needs to be fixed as soon as
On
possible.
River Road South, is that what you're talking about? Or River Road North?
Road north,
Road North,
So is there a town speed limit?
30.
30 is the
No,
lowest you can go.
I mean, so by statute, we can't set our speed limit.
No, I mean, a town,
The lowest you can go, except for a school zone, is, I believe, 30.
It is 30,
generally.
But again, when this started with New York City doing the waterworks, the speed limit from the beginning of Chelsea Road off of 9D all the way to Old State Road was to be 30 miles an hour. And now it's 40, and I don't
That would be-
understand.
That would be construction, I mean, there was provisions to put in construction speed limits.
Right.
Separate and apart from
Right.
the speed limit itself.
Right, and it was set at 30.
Do we know, we'd have to look to see how the speed limit became 40.
Everybody is trying to figure it out. And I have constituents that are very, very concerned.
So has does anybody know when it was increased to 40?
No.
Or decreased to 40?
No, it was made, I saw the sign and I was like, this was 30 miles an hour. Why is this 40 miles an hour? And this stretch right in front of where they're doing the construction, past the lumber
Okay, well, I think
company. So if you could
we'll
look into it,
investigate
let us
that.
know, please, and get it fixed as soon as we can.
That might have been actually the subject of the conversation, because the Chelsea Hamlet might have been 30 to begin with.
Right.
And that 40, I think, was the discussion where it was brought up to create a construction zone or a work zone to reduce that 40 to a lower speed limit during this project.
But
it
you're
was never
right.
done.
It's supposed to be 30, but it has been done the rest of the
Yeah.
road. The rest of the road, the rest of Chelsea Road is down to 30 miles an hour.
Well, probably always was.
It might have
No,
always
it was
been.
not
Oh,
always,
was it?
no, no.
The
no.
speed limit
We
thing-
wanted 30,
The whole thing is perplexing, these speed limits.
but this is a very, but this is a residential area, and there's a lot of children, and there's a lot of trucks, and it's posing a safety issue to a lot of to the constituents that are living there. So I'd like to have that fixed as
We'll
soon as
look at it
possible.
and report back to the next board meeting.
Please, thank
Okay?
you.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank
We'll
you.
look
Thank
into
you,
that.
everybody.
Okay. Any other points you'd like to raise? Because
Just one thing for the record, real quick. I got a call from a constituent that happens to have a residence next to the highway garage, and there's an individual who has been feeding stray cats in front of the highway garage, and apparently reports that they had gotten permission from the highway superintendent, Graham
It's a long
Foster.
history. Jim Horan and I have
Oh, you're
been
familiar
working
with
on
it?
it.
All
The
right.
person was arrested. There are work contracts. that
Okay,
were
I didn't know if,
signed.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to get it on the record
Yeah.
that I was bringing it up. I didn't know you guys were
But
already...
isn't, there's a memo in here signed by Graham Foster.
Yes, yeah. There-
Regarding
Actually, there are
cats.
two memos, but Jim is working.
All right, so you're working on it.
Yeah, we're working on it, so.
Based on the
was like, what?
preliminary research that was done, sometime around 2002, there was a feral cat problem up
Yes.
there, and
SPCA.
a group was brought in to spay and neuter
Right.
the cats that were up there. Why they, and that's the authority, which was, to spay and neuter the cats
Right.
that were up there, and I guess take care of the cats that were up there. I don't quite understand why they just didn't trap them and take them away.
Well, I talked to the SPCA about this, and there are groups out there
Yes.
that primarily will feed cats for the purposes of capturing them and spaying and neutering them, then release them, and then, eventually the population will go down, right?
And in fact, it has, from 60 to
Yes.
4.
Oh, great. So
Yes.
it's gone from 60 to 4, so we're making progress.
Yes.
So anyway, I don't want to belabor this, but
We've been working on
I'm
it.
sure you're all over this. I just want to get on the record that I was bringing it up. The police were involved. Hopefully it's solved. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I saw that.
And also, there's a
a-
similar feral cat situation over at Reese Park, actually.
I am aware of that as well. We don't need to go into that one.
I believe there's also one in Chelsea where the apartments are.
And one other comment for the record before we adjourn, because I have nothing for any executive session, is that we have active shooter program, this coming Saturday, the 30th, and we still have, a room, available for people to participate. This is going to be a combination of active shooter and Stop the Bleed. And it's an excellent program that I think is very important. It starts at 10 p.m. here in Town Hall in this room. 10 a.m., sorry, 10 a.m.
And it's 2 hours.
Yes, 2 hours.
It's
And it,
Deputy Art Hart from the Sheriff's
Yes,
Office
correct.
and Medical Reserve Corps. It's a great program, 2 hours. We actually mandate all county employees to take it. Would highly recommend, as the supervisor said, anyone that's available
Right.
to take this, especially if you sit up here on the dais for the
Correct.
point that you made in that email.
no, that's right. Anything else? I have no other business.
Make a motion to go
Motion
into
to,
executive?
no, nothing to go in exec, yeah.
Make a motion to.
It's hard to say before 10 o'clock. I'll second the motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. We did it. Motion passed.
We did it. We got out before 10.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you guys very much.